All right, so let's dive into a topic that's always on a lot of people's minds. Fat loss, but not the kind of, crash diet, quick fix kind of a thing. We're talking about the kind that lasts. The kind that's really about making changes that stick. And, you send over a couple of sources that look really interesting. One from Healthline. It's called 12 Ways to Promote Long-Term Fat Loss. Sounds promising, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And then this piece from Evergreen Life, and this one is all about how to lose weight without exercise, which I gotta say really piqued my curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, putting those two kind of approaches together. One's sort of like a broader look, and the other one's really zeroing in on a specific strategy.
Yeah, and so today what we're going to do, we're going to try to pull out the most effective tips from both of these sources. The ones that, really seem to be backed by science, we'll see where they kind of overlap, maybe where they differ a little bit. And, who knows, maybe we'll find some kind of surprising connections between them. And most importantly, by the end of this, hopefully you'll walk away with some actual advice that you can put into practice. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay, so let's start with something that both of these sources actually emphasize right off the bat, and that is the power of sleep. I bet some people might be surprised to find out that getting enough sleep can actually play a major role in losing fat.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, that connection isn't immediately obvious. You don't really think about sleep and weight being connected.
Right.
But there's actually a really strong hormonal connection between the two. Basically, when you don't get enough sleep, your body starts producing more of this hormone called ghrelin, which is the one that makes you feel hungry. And at the same time, it actually lowers the levels of leptin, which is the hormone that tells you you're full.
So it's kind of like a double whammy.
Exactly. It's basically like setting yourself up for those moments where you just feel like you need to eat everything in sight.
And, I can definitely relate to that. Sometimes when I'm really tired, I just want to devour everything in the fridge.
Yeah, and it's not just about feeling hungry either. It also affects your willpower, right? Your decision making. So it's kind of like your brain is saying, give me all the sugar I need to stay awake. And when you're tired, you're much more likely to give in to those cravings for sugary, high-calorie snacks.
Right, because you're just looking for that quick energy boost.
Exactly.
So, okay, both sources, both Healthline and Evergreen Life, recommend aiming for that 7 to 9 hours of sleep by night. And Evergreen Life actually goes a little bit further and gives some tips for improving sleep quality. Things like, setting up a really restful sleep environment, sticking to a consistent sleep schedule, and trying to minimize screen time before bed.
Yeah, I think that last one is especially important in today's world, right? We're all so connected to our devices. And that blue light that they emit can actually interfere with our natural sleep cycle.
Right, it basically tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime.
Exactly.
And here's something I thought was really interesting. Evergreen Life also points out that eating a healthy, balanced diet can actually improve sleep quality.
Yeah, isn't that cool? It's like a positive feedback loop.
Right.
Better food choices lead to better sleep, which leads to better food choices, and so
I
on.
love that. Love those positive feedback loops. All right, let's shift gears for a minute and talk about something else that might surprise some people when it comes to weight loss. And that's stress.
Oh, yeah, stress.
It seems like chronic stress isn't just bad for our mental health, but it can also directly impact our waistlines, too.
Yeah, for sure. And it goes back to that hormone cortisol that we were talking about earlier. Remember how we said it plays a role in sleep?
Yep.
Well, stress is also a major trigger for cortisol. And when we're constantly stressed out, our cortisol levels stay elevated. And that can lead to a couple of things that aren't so great for weight management. First, it can actually increase your appetite. And second, it can specifically lead to the storage of belly fat.
Ugh, belly fat. The bane of so many people's
I
existence.
know, right?
So what can we actually do about this? How can we manage our stress and kind of keep those cortisol levels in check? Evergreen Life suggests a few things like deep breathing exercises, meditation, even just gentle activities like yoga or walking.
Yeah, all of those can be really helpful. But I think the key is really finding what works best for you. Everyone handles stress differently. So, it's about exploring different techniques and finding the things that you enjoy, and that actually help you feel more relaxed.
Right, it has to be something you can stick with long term because stress is not something that's just going to go away.
Exactly.
So finding those coping mechanisms that work for you is super important. All right, speaking of finding things that work for you, here's a tip from Evergreen Life that I found really interesting. And it might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but they suggest chewing your food slowly.
Chew your food slowly.
Yep, apparently taking your time to really chew can actually help with weight loss.
Hmm, I've never really thought about that.
Me neither, but it makes sense when you think about how our brains and our stomachs communicate.
Okay, tell me more.
So basically, it takes about 20 minutes for your brain to get the signal from your stomach that says, okay, I'm full.
Right?
But if you're scarfing down your food, you're probably going to eat way more than you need before your body even has a chance to tell you to stop.
Oh, so you're basically overriding your body's natural fullness cues.
Exactly. And Evergreen Life recommends aiming for 20 to 30 chews per bite. They even say, try putting your fork down between bites and really take the time to savor the flavors.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense if you're rushing through your wheel, you're not really paying attention to what you're eating.
Right, and you're not giving your body a chance to register that it's getting full.
And it kind of ties into that whole concept of mindful eating, right? Being present with your food, appreciating the flavors, and paying attention to your body's signals instead of being distracted by, your phone or the TV.
Right, exactly. It's about being more intentional with your eating. And here's a fun little tip that Evergreen Life threw in there. They say using chopsticks can actually help you slow down naturally.
Well, that's a good one.
Right, it kind of forces you to take smaller bites and be more deliberate with your movements.
I like it.
All right, let's move on to something else that we consume on a regular basis, and that's beverages.
Ah, yes, beverages.
Evergreen Life had a warning about the sneaky calories that can hide in sugary drinks, and they also talk about the impact of excessive alcohol, both on sleep quality and on weight.
Yeah, we already touched on how those things can disrupt your sleep, but it also makes sense that all that extra sugar would contribute to weight gain.
Right, because your body can only use so much sugar for energy.
Exactly. And when you consume more than you need, your liver basically converts that excess sugar into fat.
Which often ends up being stored right around the midsection.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So the takeaway here is pretty simple. Prioritize water, unsweetened coffee, and tea. And be mindful of how much alcohol you're drinking.
Yep, those are the basics. And don't forget, there are plenty of ways to make water more exciting. You can add a squeeze of lemon or lime, some fresh mint leaves, even slices of cucumber can make a big difference.
I love infused water. Sometimes it just feels so much more refreshing than plain water.
It does, right?
Okay, let's talk about a dietary strategy that both sources recommend, and that's eating more protein. But what's interesting is that they have slightly different reasons for advocating for this.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, Healthline really emphasizes protein's role in preserving muscle mass during weight loss, while Evergreen Life really focuses on its impact on society and metabolism.
So they're kind of coming at it from different angles.
Yeah, but when you put those perspectives together, it really paints a pretty compelling picture of how powerful protein can be.
Right, so it's kind of like a multi-pronged approach.
Exactly. So protein helps us feel fuller for longer, which can help prevent overeating. It helps prevent us from losing muscle while we're trying to lose fat. And it actually even burns more calories during digestion than other types of nutrients.
Wow, it's like a triple threat against unwanted weight gain.
Right. It's like, what's not to love?
And here's another interesting tidbit from Evergreen Life. They point out that plant-based protein sources like beans and lentils and tofu may actually be especially beneficial for both weight loss and overall health.
I'm a big fan of plant-based protein. It's a great way to add variety to your diet and explore different flavors.
For sure.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground so far. We've talked about sleep, stress, chewing our food, being mindful of what we drink, and prioritizing protein. And it's really interesting to see how all of these different pieces of the puzzle contribute to sustainable fat loss.
Yeah, it's not just about one thing, right? It's about creating a holistic approach that addresses all the different factors that influence our weight and well-being.
And I think it's also important to remember that these strategies really work best when they're implemented together and when they're practiced consistently.
Absolutely. It's not about being perfect. It's about making small, manageable changes that you can stick with over time.
Right, consistency over perfection, because those small, consistent steps are so much more sustainable than those drastic, all-or-nothing approaches.
Exactly.
All right, so we've mostly been talking about those non-exercise strategies from Evergreen Life so far, but our friends at Healthline have a whole bunch of additional tips, and those tips involve moving our bodies and making some other lifestyle changes. So are you ready to dive into those?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting.
What excited?
All right, let's unpack some of these extra tips from Healthline, and let's start with one that's, often talked about as a real game changer, strength training.
Yeah, strength training.
What do you think is it all it's cracked up to be?
I mean, it's popular for a reason, right? The main thing with strength training is that it helps you build muscle mass. And having more muscle is kind of like, having a more efficient calorie-burning engine, even when you're not actually working out.
So like even when you're just sitting around, you're burning more calories.
Exactly. There was actually a study, I think it was in 2021, it was published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research, and they found that people who did strength training, their resting metabolic rate went up significantly.
So they were burning more calories throughout the day just doing normal stuff.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool. So it's not just about those, intense workout sessions. It's actually about how those sessions impact your metabolism all day long.
Yep, that's the idea.
But, aside from just burning calories, what other benefits does strength training have?
Well, building muscle also improves your body composition, which basically means you have a higher ratio of lean muscle mass to body fat.
So it's not just about losing weight, it's about like reshaping your body.
Yeah, kind of like scoping your body from the inside out.
I like that. So Healthline recommends doing strength training at least 2 times a week. For someone who's like completely new to this, where's a good place to start?
I mean, honestly, bodyweight exercises are a great place to start. Things like squats, push-ups, lunges, you can do those anywhere. You don't need any special equipment. And as you get stronger, you can start adding weights or resistance bands to make it more challenging.
And if you're not sure about like proper form or anything like that, it's always a good idea to, work with a trainer.
Oh, yeah, especially when you're first starting out. It's good to have someone show you the ropes.
All right, speaking of things that can, transform our bodies, let's talk about fats.
Fats, oh boy.
There's so much confusion around this topic. So many people still think that all fats are bad.
Yeah, it's definitely an outdated way of thinking.
For sure.
Healthy fats are actually essential for overall health, and believe it or not, they can actually help with weight loss.
Really?
Yeah, they help you feel full and satisfied, which can help prevent overeating, and they also play a role in hormone regulation, which is super important for maintaining a healthy weight.
So which fats should we be like actively trying to add to our diet?
Unsaturated fats are the stars of the show, so things like olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds. Remember that study we talked about before?
The one from 2023.
Yeah, the one that found a link between higher unsaturated fat intake and lower body fat percentages. They actually found that people who ate more unsaturated fats even saw a small increase in their lean muscle mass.
Wow. So it's like win-win.
Pretty much.
Does that mean we have to like cut out saturated and trans fats completely?
I mean, it's not necessarily about eliminating them entirely, but it's more about making sure that the majority of your fat intake is coming from those healthy, unsaturated sources.
Right. So like moderation and balance.
Exactly.
Which is, pretty much the key to everything in life.
Pretty much.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about fiber. I know it's important for digestion, but I'm curious about how it plays a role in fat loss.
Sure, yeah. So fiber is actually a type of carbohydrate that our bodies can't digest. So it doesn't directly contribute to our calorie intake.
Okay.
But what it does do is add bulk to our meals. And that helps us feel fuller and more satisfied.
So it's like taking up space in our stomach.
Exactly. And it also slows down the absorption of sugar into the bloodstream, which can help prevent those energy crashes that can lead to cravings.
Right, because when your blood sugar spikes and then crashes, you just want to reach for like all the sugary snacks.
Exactly.
So fiber basically helps keep our blood sugar levels more stable.
Yep. And Healthline specifically recommends focusing on soluble fiber.
Soluble fiber?
Yeah, it's a type of fiber that dissolves in water, and it forms this kind of gel-like substance in your digestive tract, which further slows down digestion and makes you feel even fuller.
Interesting. Where can we find this like super-powered soluble fiber?
It's in foods like oats, beans, lentils, apples, pears.
Okay, good to know.
Aim for at least 25 to 30 grams of fiber per day. That's a good goal for optimal health and weight management.
All right, time to make friends with oats and beans.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about something that often causes a lot of confusion. Whole grains versus refined grains.
Ah, yes, the grain debate.
I know that whole grains are generally considered healthier, but why is that?
It all comes down to how they're processed. So whole grains contain all three parts of the grain kernel, the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. And all those parts work together to provide a ton of nutrients and fiber.
Okay.
But refined grains, on the other hand, they've had the bran and the germ removed, so they've basically been stripped of a lot of their fiber, vitamins, and minerals.
So they're kind of like empty calories.
Yeah, pretty much. What's left is mostly just simple carbs that are quickly digested, and they can lead to those blood sugar spikes and crashes that we were talking about before.
Which then leads to more cravings.
Exactly.
So choosing whole grains is really about getting more nutritional value for your, calorie back.
Yep, and staying fuller for longer and keeping your energy levels more stable.
And I think it's actually easier than people might think to make those swaps.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like instead of white bread, you can choose whole wheat bread. Instead of sugary cereal, you can have oatmeal or a high-fiber cereal. Brown rice instead of white rice.
Exactly. Simple swaps.
Okay, let's get our hearts pumping a little bit and talk about cardio.
Cardio, yeah.
So cardio is obviously great for burning calories and for improving cardiovascular health. But is it strictly necessary for weight loss?
It's not strictly necessary, no. But it can definitely help speed up the process.
Okay.
And plus, it just feels good to move your body, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I always feel so much better after a good cardio session.
Me too. And there are so many different ways to get your cardio in. You can run, swim, cycle, dance, anything that gets your heart rate up and makes you break a sweat.
So many options.
Yeah, it's about finding what you enjoy and what you can stick with.
Right, because if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to do it.
Exactly.
Healthline suggests aiming for at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity cardio per week, or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity cardio.
Yeah, those are good guidelines.
Okay, let's talk about a beverage that many of us rely on for an energy boost, coffee. Healthline mentioned that coffee can actually rev up our metabolism and help with fat burning.
Yeah, coffee gets a bad rap sometimes, but it does have some potential benefits when it comes to weight management.
So, spill the beans, what's the deal with coffee?
Well, it contains caffeine, obviously, which is a natural stimulant that can temporarily increase your metabolic rate, so you burn more calories.
Okay.
And some studies have even shown that caffeine might enhance fat burning during exercise.
Interesting. So, my morning cup of coffee is doing more than just waking me up.
Maybe so.
But I guess it's important to remember that, moderation is key.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And you also want to avoid loading up your coffee with tons of sugar and cream because that can kind of negate those benefits.
Right. It's like you're adding all those extra calories back in.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to a workout style that's been getting a lot of buzz lately. Height or high-intensity interval training.
Height, yeah, it's all the rage these days.
So what is it exactly, and why is everyone so obsessed with it?
Well, basically, height involves alternating between short bursts of really intense exercise and then brief recovery periods.
So it's like go hard, then rest, then go hard again.
Exactly. And it's a really efficient way to burn a lot of calories and improve your cardiovascular fitness in a shorter amount of time than traditional cardio.
Sounds intense,
It is intense.
but also like really effective.
Yeah, it can be very effective, and the benefits go beyond just calorie burning. Height has also been shown to improve insulin sensitivity, boost metabolism, and even increase growth hormone production.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is.
But is height like a good fit for everyone?
It can be adapted to different fitness levels, yeah. But it's not for everyone. If you have any underlying health conditions or injuries, it's really important to talk to your doctor before trying height.
Right, safety first.
Always. And even if you're healthy but you're new to exercise or you've been inactive for a while, it's best to start slowly. Maybe do shorter intervals and gradually increase the intensity information as you get stronger.
Yeah, it's all about listening to your body and not pushing yourself too hard too soon.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to something that's been gaining a lot of traction in the health and wellness world. Probiotics. Healthline suggests that they might play a role in weight management.
Probiotics, interesting.
Yeah, can you shed some light on that for us?
Sure. So probiotics are basically live bacteria and yeasts that are beneficial for gut health.
Okay.
And more research is suggesting that a healthy gut microbiome might actually be linked to a healthy weight.
So like a happy gut equals a happy weight.
Well, it's a little more complicated than that, but there's definitely a connection. Some studies have shown that certain probiotic strains might actually help regulate appetite, reduce fat storage, and even increase calorie expenditure.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. So how do we get more of these like gut-friendly probiotics into our diet?
Fermented foods are a great source. Things like yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi.
Oh, I love kimchi.
You can also take probiotic supplements.
Okay, cool. All right, last but not least, let's talk about intermittent fasting. Healthline mentioned it as a potential tool for fat loss.
Intermittent fasting, yeah, it's been really popular lately.
So what is it exactly? Is it like a diet?
It's not really a diet in the traditional sense. It's more about when you eat rather than what you eat.
Okay.
It involves cycling between periods of eating and fasting.
So it's more about like creating structured eating windows.
Exactly.
What are some of the popular methods of intermittent fasting?
There are several, but one that's really gained a lot of traction is the 168 method. Basically, you fast for 16 hours, and then you have an 8-hour window where you can eat all your meals.
So for example, you might stop eating at 8 p.m. and then not eat again until noon the next day.
Exactly.
And how does that like help with weight loss?
Well, during those fasting periods, your body is forced to tap into its stored fat reserves for energy.
Makes sense.
And some studies have shown that intermittent fasting can actually lead to greater fat loss than traditional calorie restriction diets.
Interesting.
But it's important to note that intermittent fasting is not for everyone. If you have certain medical conditions, or if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, or if you have a history of disordered eating, you should definitely talk to your doctor before trying it.
Yeah, it's always a good idea to talk to your doctor before making any major dietary changes.
For sure.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground today, from strength training and healthy fats to probiotics and intermittent fasting. It seems like we have a lot of different tools at our disposal when it comes to achieving sustainable fat loss.
We do.
But with so many options, it can be kind of overwhelming, right? Like, where do you even begin?
Yeah, I could see how it could feel that way. But the good thing is, you don't have to do everything at once. You can start by picking just one or two strategies that resonate with you, and then gradually incorporate them into your routine.
So it's not about like completely overhauling your life overnight.
No, not at all. It's about making small, sustainable changes that you can stick with over time.
Right. Consistency over perfection
Exactly.
and celebrating those small victories along the way.
Absolutely. Every step you take towards a healthier lifestyle is a win.
I love that. All right. So based on all this amazing information we've talked about today, what's one change that you're personally excited to try?
You know, I've been trying to be more mindful lately, just like in general. So I think that whole mindful eating thing really speaks to me. I'm definitely going to try slowing down, chewing more thoroughly, and really savoring the flavors. It's kind of like making each meal an experience instead of just something I rush through, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a great choice. It's amazing how just shifting your awareness can have such a big impact on your relationship with food. And, it's not just about weight management either. There's actually research showing that chewing your food properly can improve digestion and nutrient absorption.
Oh, wow. So it's like good for your overall health, too.
Exactly.
It's crazy how everything's connected. You know, it's not just about isolated changes. It's about creating this whole, like, holistic approach to well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we've really covered a lot of ground today. Any final words of wisdom to leave our listeners with before we wrap things up?
Let's see. I think the most important thing to remember is that sustainable fat loss is a journey, not a race. It's about finding what works for you and weaving those healthy habits into your life. Be patient with yourself, celebrate those small victories, and remember that progress, not perfection, is the goal. And don't be afraid to ask for support along the way, whether it's from a friend, a family member, or a healthcare professional. Having a support system can make a big difference.
That's so true. We don't have to do this alone. And speaking of reminders, we always like to emphasize that the information we share here is for educational purposes only, and it's not a substitute for professional medical advice. So if you have any concerns about your health or your weight management journey, it's always best to talk to your doctor.
Absolutely. Your health is your most valuable asset, so take care of it.
Well said. Well, that wraps up another deep dive episode. We explored so many fascinating aspects of sustainable fat loss today, from the power of sleep and stress management to the benefits of strength training and mindful eating. We even touched on probiotics and intermittent fasting. Hopefully, you're walking away feeling inspired and empowered to make some lasting changes, changes that support your health and well-being.
Yeah, it's been great diving deep into this topic with you.
The pleasure was all mine. And to our amazing listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey of knowledge and exploration. Until next time, keep those curious minds engaged and those bodies moving. We'll catch you on our next deep dive.